down, down to the beat, yo. We get down to the beat, yo. It's like we're not going anywhere. Maybe it's because there's something in the air. And I don't even care, no, no. I don't even care anymore. It's like we're losing all track of time.
Hey guys, you're back with Steph and Dennis. It's obviously still the morning right now. I'm still getting situated at my desk. My voice is still a lot deeper than it normally is. But yeah, basically after getting up, after, grabbing my coffee, the next thing that I typically like to do is check my emails first. So we've obviously talked about this before, right? So for anyone who's been tuned into like our money or investing videos, a question that comes up a lot is how do you guys actually find different information? How do you stay up to date on business, financial news? Obviously, there's YouTube videos that you can watch, there's podcasts that you can listen to, but there's also email newsletters that you can read in the morning. Now, you guys have definitely heard us mention the Morning Brew before, but we recently got a comment from Campbell who mentioned a newsletter called The Peak, which is basically like the Morning Brew, but for Canadians. Now, you can see it right here, right? It's short, it's approximately a 5-minute read, it's super fast, it's entertaining. Obviously, it's free. All you have to do is sign up, and then every morning at around 6 a.m. you get sent a newsletter to your inbox, and there you go. So to give you guys a few examples of like what they talk about, they talk about tech, so what's Facebook up to? They talk about the world of crypto, they talk about investing. So, for example, Brookfield Asset Management just bought a bunch of dorms. So for today, what we're gonna be talking about is something called the Great Resignation. So it's how people are quitting their jobs to do a whole bunch of different things, right? And they're actually willing to take a pay cut in order to not go back to the office. Now, this is a topic that's inspired by something that we actually read in The Peak, which is super cool. We're obviously excited to be working with The Peak on this video, so if you guys want to check them out, we're gonna have their link down in the description box below. Once again, it is free, so check them out, sign up, and yeah, for now, I'm gonna kick it back to Steph, and I'm gonna enjoy my coffee and just start my morning.
Okay, so let's talk about the Great Resignation. So lately, maybe you've noticed that more and more of your colleagues are leaving than you've ever noticed before, or maybe all of your friends have been telling you that they're leaving their corporate jobs to join more startups, or maybe you yourself are actually one of those people that are leaving their current job to go and do something else, whatever that might be. Whatever you have noticed you're not seeing things, there really has been a major shift, and more people are leaving and quitting their jobs. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but for me, I can kind of see where it's coming from. After a year and a half of living in these pandemic times, where a lot of that time has been spent in shutdowns or lockdowns, especially in cities like we are here in Toronto, people are just generally thinking about work in a different way than they have before. Now that we're getting closer, or maybe some people have already been starting to transition back into working in a physical office space again, some people might not want to do that, and you do have more options now with all of those job openings to actually switch to another company and not have to do that. Also, a lot of people started a side hustle during the pandemic and all that working from home time that maybe they can actually turn into their full-time job by now. Also, a really interesting phenomenon that I've been reading about, and maybe I'll try and find an article to link down below that I thought was super interesting, is that people have been taking on, at least some people, 2 full-time remote work from home jobs. If you've ever worked in banking, professional services, just corporate jobs in general, you know that this is a big no-no, they don't want that, but it's a little bit easier to hide when you've been working from home. So now that we know this is happening, people are quitting, what is the impact gonna be? Back over to Den for that.
All right, so based on everything Steph just went over, it's clearly an employee's market, which basically means that the employee, so us, we're in control. So if you think about it kind of like supply and demand, right now the supply of jobs is greater than the demand for potential employees, which basically means that it's easier for you to get a job right now. So if you want to go out and find one that's a better fit and one with better pay, chances are you're gonna find it. So something else that we were actually reading about and found super interesting is that typically it's actually a manager that can keep an employee. If you really like your manager and you're feeling challenged and you're feeling appreciated, all of a sudden that becomes more important than even your pay. Basically what this means is that if employees are working in environments that they don't like, it's going to take a company a lot more than just throwing around a bunch of money to actually keep them. And honestly, this is something that me and Steph have been seeing firsthand at the companies that we work for. It kind of feels like people are just leaving left, right, and center. I would say on my side, there's been at least 3 to 4 partners that have just outright left. There's been a bunch of managers, and then there's been the usual turnover of seniors. But the impact itself, we're feeling it. And even then, if we look at Steph's side, they've had the highest turnover that they've ever had in years, which is really not common on the internal side of these firms.
Now I want to take a minute to talk about all the employees that are left behind, or basically just not quitting their job and jumping in on this movement. Even though we know millions of people are quitting, millions of people are also not quitting, which might be you. So let's talk about that. One thing that you might notice is that when your colleagues are leaving around you, your workload tends to grow. Obviously, that's because when they leave, their knowledge and expertise leaves too, so that leaves you to stick around and pick up the slack. Now, on the bright side, a lot of people actually might get new opportunities because of this. Obviously, if you're the one there that's actually holding the team together with the history and knowledge, that could be a good thing for you. Now, something else that we did read into and I definitely wanted to mention is that the Great Resignation movement isn't all great and glamorous for everyone. Many marginalized groups, including low-wage workers, might not have the time and resources to actually go around and job shop, even if jobs are opening up and there's more available. Typically, switching jobs involves having some weeks without a paycheck, and also on the other hand, it actually takes the time, like I mentioned before, to actually go ahead and find a new job. You might remember seeing that viral Burger King sign from a month or so back that said on their sign out front, "We all quit, sorry for the inconvenience." Now, this happened after a Burger King in Nebraska had such bad working conditions and so many problems in their store that the general manager actually ended up passing out from dehydration on the job and ended up in the hospital. Now, their entire staff obviously did quit in this case, but it took some pretty harsh conditions in order to make that happen.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, we wanted to give a few quick tips on what you can do if you're either unhappy with your job or you're thinking about leaving. Now, we mentioned this earlier, but there's a bunch of different things that people are doing after they leave their jobs. But if you're someone who's planning on staying in the same field, but you're just looking for, better benefits, better pay, more flexibility, like working from home, you actually do have the power in your hands right now, especially if you're a good employee and you're a high performer that your company wants to keep. So what we would recommend is doing your market research, finding out what you should actually be getting paid, and negotiating with your current employer by saying something like,
"Hey boss, I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind lately. I've been doing some market research and it looks like the average salary for someone in my position would be about this many $1,000s, which is obviously a little bit higher than my current salary. I'd love to set up a specific time to discuss my compensation and see what we can do to actually close that gap. When would be a good time for you?"
And if the answer is no, maybe it's worth it for you to actually interview with other companies and see what they're willing to pay you or offer you in terms of flexibility. I mean, if you're someone who genuinely wants to stay, but you don't like the pay or the flexibility or whatever it is, right? Then you can go out and get an offer from another company, bring it back to your current company, show it to them. If they want to keep you, then they'll match it. But at the same time, if you're going to pull that move, you better be willing to actually leave once it comes down to it.
Alright everyone, that is a wrap for this video. We hope you found it interesting, and like we said earlier, we really would love to hear what you've been seeing regarding this Great Resignation phenomenon. Have you quit your job recently? Are you planning on it? Give us the tea. Have your colleagues been leaving around you? Are your friends starting startups? Whatever it is, give us the scoop. We want to hear in the comments below. Also, a reminder that if you hadn't heard of The Peak before, you now have a great news source of business news, especially for us Canadians. We've definitely found it to be a staple in our mornings, and a big thank you again to The Peak for working with us on this video today. So if you guys hadn't heard of them and you want to check it out for free and sign up, we'll have them linked in the description box below and also in the pinned comment too. Lastly, if you haven't checked out some of our previous videos on money, investing, careers, all of the topics we talk about here on the channel, check them out next door, and we'll be back soon with more videos coming your way.